Tatum has a podcast. Some of the things that he talks about, I couldn't be further away from him. But they asked him in an interview what he thought about this verdict, and we can agree on this one.
Yeah, I think it was the right verdict. I saw it coming from a mile away.
Pasado, volví a pulir temas gramática, a tratar de aumentar mi carga laboral enseñando español, así que tenía una batalla en mi cabeza entre los dos idiomas.
En todo caso, asegura que en medio de esa batalla, y sobre todo durante su largo aprendizaje del idioma checo, hubo un factor muy especial que lo ayudó mucho.
Y algo que yo creo que me motivó mucho fue la música, además un estímulo. Si cantábamos los villancicos, los que íbamos en la embajada para la Navidad, para las Pascuas, entonces como la música estaba muy presente en mi familia, es más, mi madre es profesora de danza, mi padre es profesor de educación física, así que también el movimiento siempre ha estado allí presente. Y yo creo que también eso me jugó a favor, también con el estímulo de la melodía y bueno, en parte también por mi abuela, ya que también nos cantaba de hecho.
Lo cierto es que, aún hablando checo, su propia experiencia como docente de español hizo que a Miguel le resultara aún más evidente la diferencia que existe entre estudiar un idioma y otro.
Bueno, de hecho, actualmente también lo veo mucho más porque me toca enseñar en su mayoría a checos en la escuela de español donde estoy ahora. Y siento que se me hace me da un poco de envidia a veces que le pasan bien en poco tiempo, entonces, en retrospectiva, sí.
Is situated at an altitude of 1,800 meters or almost 6,000 feet. It is surrounded by tall mountain peaks and farmland. Many of our catches in Roosendaal were related to Iran. There is a great amount of activity on shortwave now around Iran. On 12 June, 3955 kHz at 2038 UTC. KBS World Radio in German from Woofricken. Jingle, followed by male and female voices making an announcement, followed by K-pop music. SIO 353. 5890 kHz at 2045 UTC. Iran International TV from Sofia, Bulgaria. Male voice talking. SIO 555. No Iranian jamming. 5860 kHz at 2047 UTC, Radio Farda from Kuwait. Male and female voices talking. SIO 454. No Iranian jamming. 6050 kHz at 2048 UTC, Shizan RTV from Lhasa, Tibet. Chinese music. SIO 454. On 14 June, 9330 kHz at 1910 UTC. Radio Payam, possibly from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, in Farsi. Classical style music, followed by male voice talking. SIO 444, with interference from the Iranian bubble jammer. Another station called Radio Fayam, also heard on 15615 kHz at 1911 UTC. This is a change from the previous frequency, which was 11815 kHz. The two stations share the same name, but programming was not the same. On 15615 kHz, male and female voices were talking, interspersed with music clips. Several clear Radio Payam IDs. SIO 444, with interference from the Iranian bubble jabber. 9350 kHz at 1923 UTC. Radio Farda from Tashkent, Uzbekistan. Weak talk with strong Iranian jammer. SIO 232. 9360 kHz at 1923 UTC, Radio Farda from Tinan, in Farsi. Female voice talking. SIO 555. No Iranian jamming on this frequency. 9400 kilohertz at 1924 UTC. The Overcomer Ministry from Sofia, Bulgaria in English. Religious music. SIO 555. 9425 kilohertz at 1925 UTC. Voice of Korea in German from Kujang, North Korea. North Korean music. SIO 454. 9500 kilohertz at 1925 UTC. Radio Romania International in Romanian from Golbeni. Male voice talking about something that sounded like holidays. SIO 555. 9585 kilohertz at 1927 UTC. Follow the Bible Ministries from Ascension Island in English. Presenter thanking listeners for tuning in and promotion of a book and study guide on salvation. Contact details given, an address in Alameda, California, and an email address, followed by a jingle and the end of transmission. SIO 555. 9620 kilohertz at 1928 UTC, All India Radio in Arabic from Bengaluru. Male voice talking. SIO 454. 9820 kilohertz at 1930 UTC, Radio Slovakia International in Russian from Aldabaya. Opening announcements, station ID, followed by announcer discussing the day's programming. SIO 454. (9920 kilohertz at 1931 UTC, Radio Filipinas from Tinang. Female voice talking. SIO 555. 11740 kilohertz at 1936 UTC, IRIB, Voice of the Islamic Republic of Iran from Sijan in English. Talk about solidarity expressed by Pakistan with Iran in the face of US and Israeli aggression. Low audio as usual, but understandable. SIO 454. 11910 kilohertz at 1938 UTC, Voice of Korea in English from Kujang. Upbeat, jazzy North Korean music, very strong signal, SIO 555. 12040 kilohertz at 1940 UTC, Radio Farda from Wufferton. Male voice talking in Farsi, very clear. SIO 555. 12060 kilohertz at 1941 UTC, NHK World Radio from Yamata, Japan in Japanese. Male voices talking. SIO 555. Thank you for listening, and if you have any comments or would like to request an EQSL for the South Africa DX report, you can contact me at andre9@duck.com. That is Alpha, November, Delta, Romeo, Echo, the number 9 at Delta, Uniform, Charlie, Kilo.com. Goodbye everyone and happy DX. Thank you, Andre.
World Cup 2026 song, African football anthem, Sia Pakama. Thanks for listening to Wavescan, the international DX program researched and written in Indianapolis by Dr. Adrian Peterson and in Los Angeles by Ray Robinson. Next week, Radio New York Worldwide, WRUL and WNYW, Part 1. More from the NASB 2026 meeting in Birmingham, and our Japan DX report from Yukiko Tsuji. Wavescan is heard weekly in the Americas from WRMI in Florida and WWCR in Tennessee. Across Asia, Australia, and New Zealand on Reach Beyond Australia, and in Europe on IRRS Italy and on NorthRadio.com in Alaska. Please send reception reports directly to any of those stations. Podcasts of this program are available through wavescan.podomatic. That's PODOMATIC.com. Your comments or suggestions are always welcome. Just email Ray or me using the address wavescan@yahoo.com. You can find a preview of each week's wave scan on the WRMI Radio Facebook page. I'm Jeff White at WRMI Shortwave in Okeechobee, Florida. Till next week, good listening, everyone. Extra.com is a free radio database covering over 50,000 stations worldwide, AM, FM, and shortwave. See real-time VOA-capped propagation maps showing which shortwave stations you can receive right now at your location. Explore terrain-aware coverage maps for FM and AM stations across the U.S., Europe, Brazil, Australia, and more. No sign-up, no app. Just visit dxtra.com.
RMI, their website, WRMI.net. That's WRMI.net. Visit our website and share QSL reports. This is WRMI, Okeechobee, Florida.
Radio Slovakia International. Slovakia Today. Welcome to this Sunday edition of Slovakia Today. I'm your host, Jeremy Hill. As we do every week, we'll be hearing from you, our listeners. As well, we'll look back at the history of Slovak radio. But first, let's start with a bit of music.
Old song, a male of the first year.
Radio Martí, siempre contigo. La voz de la oposición.
Thank you. Samuel S. Wiener Memorial.
Hay varias cosas de que hablar y parece que vamos encaminados en cuanto a lo que pueda pasar en Cuba, aunque la gente está por los dos lados amenazándose uno al otro de cosas que no van a pasar. Pero hay una de las condiciones que ha salido a la luz pública últimamente que verdaderamente nos alarma un poco, y es que los Estados Unidos están pidiendo que Cuba acepte 500,000 de cubanos que vinieron por el paro de sus ciudadanos. Yo creo que se una de las razones que se pueden eliminar.
Estás escuchando la voz de la oposición.
Y como prometido, aquí está nuestro primer invitado, un hombre que ha dedicado una gran parte de su vida a luchar por la democracia en Cuba, y lo ha pagado con años de cárcel en el grupo de los 75. En este momento está llamando el Partido por la Democracia, Pedro Luis Boyka, además de la organización de los sindicalistas que siempre han ganado. Pertenecieron a nuestro amigo Iván Hernández Carrillo. Bienvenido a nuestro programa, Iván. Gracias, Santiago, por la invitación a este programa que tanta gente escucha dentro de Cuba. Y un saludo para la escucha que van a tener de los gente de Cuba, para Landy, para el pastor bueno, un abrazo inmenso para el club en la distancia, Santiago. Nosotros también, que nos consideramos un hermano, un patriota, que todos necesita para el cambio que ya está muy cerca. Veterano, a nuestra patria. nuestra patria y pasear por ahí por los arados.
Y a partir de ahí, pues todavía me queda el gusanito de continuar impartiendo cursos, dar clases. Empecé a trabajar dando cursos en dos lugares de Coyoacán, que es la Casa de Cultura del Reloj, y una subdelegación territorial que le llaman Los Pedregales, que está en la colonia Cusco. Ahí ya tengo 15 años de estar impartiendo los cursos. Y precisamente este año cumplo los 10 años de estar impartiendo cursos en el huerto de las niñas y los niños. Y pues hemos desarrollado aparte otro tipo de actividades. Podríamos decir que cuando hablamos de agricultura o hablamos de cultivos, muchas veces nos enfocamos a la cuestión de que son cultivar hortalizas, cultivar ese tipo de plantas para la alimentación. Trato de darle como un sentido más amplio en el sentido de que podemos también desarrollar otro tipo de plantas. Hay unas plantas que están en peligro de extinción.
Y con el preso político. Muy buena noticia. Un mejor plan para hacerlas. Be forever. So it's really a hard thing to cry out to God. To everything there is a season and a time. To every purpose under heaven. That's one of the things that haunt me, because many times things happen. I often ask, what's the purpose? I don't know, I'd like to know things. And you know what? Jesus likes to let us know things. He's so much like to do it till he sends us a prophet. And he said, all things of my Father I make known unto you. Why? For a time. For a
conquering Taiwan, nor it is likely to acquire this capability in the short term, Blair asserts, challenging the most pessimistic projections for military intelligence. Blair's perspective carries unquestionable authority. He served as a commander-in-chief of the U.S. Pacific Command between 1999 and 2002. He was Director of National Intelligence between 2009 and 2010, and from 2003 to 2007, he served as a lead mentor for Taiwan's annual self-defense exercises. His assessment coincides with a moment of peak tensions marked by the start of Taipei's military exercises, sustained Chinese military pressure, and the reconfiguration of global supply chains in the wake of the war between the U.S. and Iran. Blair debunks the might of the People's Liberation Army, explaining that Chinese military spending since 1990 has not been focused exclusively on a direct assault force against Taiwan. On the contrary, Beijing has spread its resources thin to meet multiple global objectives, such as the development of costly aircraft carriers aimed at projective power and space capabilities, while neglecting a fundamental tactic priority for invading a heavily fortified island: amphibious transport. A December 2025 Pentagon report had already sounded the alarm about the critical shortfall in the PLA, pointing to a shortage of landing craft and a lack of training improvisation for lower-ranking commanders, a fatal flaw in operations where initial plans rarely survive first contact. Added to this material reality are internal organizational factors. The recent purges in the military leadership ordered by President Xi Jinping suggests difficulties in the leadership of the armed forces, an ecosystem where widespread corruption has eroded operational capabilities. Blair also points out where political subservience outweighs technical skills. A propensity for bribery and displays of personal loyalty does not translate into mastery of maritime operations, states the former intelligence director. For Beijing, moreover, alternatives that do not involve a full-scale invasion, such as an air and naval blockade or targeted missile strikes, carry high risk and have little legal basis. A blockade would provoke an immediate international response. According to the analysis, Allied plans already call for the establishment of merchant ship escort convoys through Japanese and Philippine territorial waters, which would neutralize the effectiveness of economic pressure on the island. The international strategic context has also provided valuable lessons in recent months. Ukraine's resistance against Russia, for example, has transformed the Taipei's defense doctrine. Democratization and the widespread use of commercial and military drones have demonstrated that a numerically inferior force can halt the advance of a giant and force entire fleets to retreat to confined maritime areas. As Ukraine has demonstrated, a numerically inferior force employing these weapon systems can halt an invader, writes Blair. Taking note of this asymmetry, the Taiwanese government proposed in November 2025 an ambitious 8-year special defense budget of $40 billion, earmarked almost entirely for shielding the island with swarms of drones and anti-ship missiles.
Freedom Radio.
We will not let Communist Party of China define who we are, says Taiwan's Vice President Xiao Bi-Kim, who has been sanctioned by Beijing and labeled as separatist. Despite Beijing's ever-growing hostilities toward Taiwan, she is not deterred. Jan Jekielek, host of American Thought Leaders, sat with Vice President Xiao to understand how Taiwan is working to strengthen its whole of society resilience and deter a greater conflict with China. Let's listen.
Vice President Xiao Bi-Kim, such a pleasure to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Yes, well, welcome to Taiwan, and it's a pleasure to talk with you.
And it's appropriate, too, because your mother is American.
Yes, well, my mother's a native of North Carolina, and growing up as both Taiwanese and with some American heritage, I always saw it as a lifetime duty or a mission to be bridging Taiwan and America. And I did not expect it, but I ended up as a diplomat and working also in this particular role in international relations. And so that's been a very meaningful part of my journey.
Absolutely. Well, as I was preparing to come here, something to me at least pretty astonishing happened, and that was your National Security Bureau published a website and a video encouraging Chinese whistleblowers to basically provide intelligence from China to Taiwan. This video really kind of showcases, at least to me as I watched it, what can happen to, frankly, anybody in China at any time, whatever their background. It's just a kind of a stark reality. And I thought, this is fascinating. And, of course, there's other intelligence agencies around the world that have been looking to try to gather intelligence in maybe slightly similar ways, but this strikes me as pretty unique. I just wanted to understand the thinking behind it.
Well, I generally don't talk about our intel operations, but I think, the broader context of that is that, we've noticed some disappearances in China, including Taiwanese business people, and also some of our religious leaders who have been practicing in China. And so these disappearances, the suppression and the deprivation of basic rights has become increasingly a issue not only for Chinese citizens but for other travelers visiting China. So I think this is a broader context that reminds us how important the rule of law and how important the due process of law and the basic rights that sustain our society's functioning are so important to us.
The Chinese Communist Party has been very, I'd say, effective at using these unrestricted warfare doctrines, especially this kind of cognitive warfare. And I'm looking at this, short video that you published. I thought, could Taiwan be really stepping up its cognitive warfare capabilities?
Well, we've been mostly in a defensive position as China's cognitive warfare, psychological warfare, political warfare, legal warfare, and very aggressive interventions in our domestic society and politics has become an increasingly serious problem for us. And we know that other democracies around the world are also facing similar challenges. And so, building our defenses, especially in the age of AI, where very much many of the cognitive warfare or the disinformation is amplified, and so
it is, and it's pretty good. So he built us how to Raspberry Pis. He also 3D printed the case. They use 3D printers, and is actually distributed from within the U.S. So you avoid all these tariffs and taxes and such, custom duties, which seem to be the norm now. So you can get that. So that's one. Oh, but I want cheaper. Okay, so there's QMX, right? QMX. There's a QCX, QRPLabs.com. And the QRP Labs, they have the kits of the QMX Plus. Gets you a 5-watt radio for $125 US dollars a kit. That's the only thing. So you have to spend some time behind the solar array. And you know what? It's a rewarding experience. I have mine in a building right now. I just haven't got a lot of time. But that in itself is rewarding. That you have this to build as a fully functioning radio. You can also get the QMX, not the QMX Plus, the QMX Plus has multi-mode CW, digital, and SSB for $102.47. Right? Can't beat that with a stick. Well, you can, but let's go back to Farhan. What else does Farhan have? So if you go to hfsignals.com again, they have a cheap one called the LockSat, $39, and it's basically something that you build, and it's basically made out of PCBs. So a lot of stuff. It's a SSB and CW, so you don't have to know Morse code, and it has all the surface mount stuff is already mounted. All you need to do is put the through-hole parts, and then you put that in. And how much was that? I think it was $59 United States, and that includes the shipping from India. But I think that he ships them from the U.S. now. Because he has a friend in Illinois near Chicago. I think his name is Sashi, who he has his U.S. company there, and they're actually shipping these from within the U.S. So very nice. HF Signals. Right. QMX still has you have the QCX Mini, which is a mini and this one is CW with Whisper. I don't think that one has SSB. That's $57.79. Okay, for the kit. Yeah, we're getting cheaper, right? $57.79. And this one is actually a pretty nice radio. So, lots of stuff there. Alright. Well, you could get even cheaper, right? So if you're looking at HF again, you have if you really want to get something cheap that kind of like, just really kind of like just ticks all boxes, you could go online on like eBay or AliExpress or Temu. I think Temu has them. I bought a bunch of stuff from Temu before all these tariffs started coming down. And I bought like kits. When my kids' school was open, the not the school they go to now, but the previous school, when they're in middle school, because the school closed down, because the diocese just decided that they're going to close that down to save money. But anyway, I bought a ton of kits from these Chinese sites, and it's like, we're not talking big money. Like, you could buy a Pixie for less than $10, and you put that together in an evening, and you can receive and transmit CW with that. So you see, there's all sorts of ways to be a cheap ham, right? And we haven't even started on antennas. You don't need a big, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 tower to play radio. What you can do is you can take some wire. You go to the home improvement store or wherever and get a roll of wire. Well, wire's kind of expensive these days, but you might have some old scrap wire laying around. Put up a dipole and you sing that up in a tree, and you're good to go, right? I see people selling dipoles for all kind of $300-$400. They're probably well made, but you don't need to spend that kind of money. You can make your own. And the unique thing about the amateur radio service is that it is a hobby and a service. It is a radio service where you can build your own equipment, that the government trusts you to build your own equipment because you are supposedly knowledgeable enough to pass an exam and demonstrate your knowledge of radio, so you know not to interfere with the police or fire or military, and you also know how not to hurt yourself. We hope. Okay. Alright, so let's shift gears a little bit. So last time I mentioned about CHU, and CHU Canada is one of the time signal stations. There are a bunch of them around that are basically, they broadcast the time, but they also broadcast frequency signals, meaning that not only do they broadcast like tones that serve as a frequency standard, they also broadcast on frequency, and they have a high degree of frequency stability and accuracy, and this is used in a number of scientific experiments. So HAMSCI, which is the Ham Radio Science Citizen Investigation, they rely upon these time stations, right? So let's see, we're playing CHU here, and you hear it gone, and they have like these precisely timed pulses, but this is really not, and they have the announcements in English and French too, because Canada speaks French as well. You see?
0 hours, 38 minutes.
Yeah, you heard them announce in English and French. WWV, by the way, sends something on 8 minutes past each hour, I believe, for HAMSCI. So what HAMSCI does is they monitor these time stations, and then when they monitor these time stations, they can track things like Doppler shift changes and other things that will show the effects of solar eclipses and other space weather phenomena on the ionosphere. And Dr. Nathaniel Frizzell, W2NAF, and his team of researchers have done a lot of scientific research either way. Now, the fact that CHU is going away is going to put a damper on things. So that might, set them back a little bit. Well, because now there would not be a time station, another, additional time station. I believe CHU broadcasts out of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and you really there is nothing that far north, really, in the Western Hemisphere that will be able to serve as like a beacon. So let's say we have another, I think there is another solar eclipse coming, but we don't have a station there because WWV is in Fort Collins, Colorado, and then we have WWVH, which is in Hawaii. Well, we're kind of hoping that the Canadian government will change course and say, well, okay, you can get to keep CHU. And then we can continue with the scientific experiments. Please, if anybody in the Canadian government is listening, we really appreciate CHU, and we know Canadians are nice, okay? We really do. And, from the bottom of my heart, I love Canadians. I have family who are Canadians, and, I think that it is a good thing to keep it alive. So if you find it in your heart, right, or if you are Canadian and you want to tell your government, please don't shut down CHU. Buy them a box of Timbits or something from Tim Hortons. That might be a bribe. But, just make a plea for that. Hamza has actually written a nice letter to kind of like in support of CHU to ask them not to shut down as well. So, but these stations, like I said, they've proved to be a really important piece of the landscape. And people might think that HF is really a wasteland these days. All you have is shortwave radio with some person named Rhea on talking, where you have people, have other types of programming and such. You have like jamming from North Korea. And you have all this wonderful program on WRMI and WRMI Legends, right? And I hope you do listen as well, too. But there are a lot of useful things. And one of the useful things with the time signals in particular is that they do not depend on infrastructure. So I was talking with Phil about this, and Phil, there has to be some sort of fallback for if somebody decides to jam all the GPS satellites. Because if they jam the GPS satellites, there's not only position that's going to get affected, it's also going to be time. When I used to work in banking, right, I used to actually write trading software for a bank. And one of the trading software I used to write was for compliance with timekeeping. So how it works is that now you have the infrastructure for high-speed trading. And high-speed trading
quisiéramos prolongar hacia el futuro. Porque la vida sigue adelante y nosotros somos quienes tenemos que adaptarnos y no tratar de adaptar la vida a nosotros.
Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of Yahweh. Now, why is it so important?
You are listening to
Next up in this broadcast, it's music from A to Z with me, Afternoon. Today's music program is dedicated to Florin Bogardo and Stella Ivani. Unique and sensitive with an imposing stature and the charisma of a movie star, Florin Bogardo has been and remains one of Romania's most beloved and prolific composers of pop music. He composed to the soundtracks for films whose music continues to enjoy success today. As a performer, lyricist, instrumentalist, orchestrator, and musical director, Florin Bogardo has explored other musical genres: symphonic, vocal, chamber music, choral works, children's songs, and electronic music, and has created arrangements and orchestrations of Romanian and international pop music. But for us Romanians,
se conquistan. Así lo enseñó el apóstol de nuestra independencia, José Martí, en el que
At the moment, 1 hour, 30 minutes.